Welcome. Thank you for allowing us to come into your home or your office to talk about this wonderful benefit. We had a webinar a couple of months ago and realized that it's complicated, and we threw out so much information in such a short amount of time. And we were not able to answer all the questions at that point. So we thought we'd just have a Q&A webinar so we can answer some of the questions that we have not been able to answer. Over the last 8 years, we have received more than 650 pensions for our clients, and we haven't lost one. So 650 to 0. And so my son, Chad, you see him, he is our brainchild at this law firm. So he's going to do most of the talking with this. So I'm going to turn it over to him.
Hey, everybody. So my father might be exaggerating a little bit when he calls me a brainchild, but he is my father, so he is a little biased. But I do know a few things about the VA benefits, especially VA pension in particular. So here's kind of an overview. This is what we're going to be talking about today. So we're going to start out. I'll give you a brief overview of VA pension, and all of this I'm going to kind of run through quickly, other than the Q&A format portion. But I will give you a brief overview of the VA pension, a brief recap of my father's last webinar, and then we're going to have a Q&A type format, and we'll see how this works. And so we'll answer, unanswered questions from the last webinar, any incoming questions that you all might have at this time. We'll do our best to answer those on the fly. If not, we'll try to get to them at the end. And then also common questions that we encounter that people may not even know that they need to ask, but they are questions that people need to be thinking about. And so we'll address a couple of those as we move along. So what is VA pension? Well, it is a needs-based benefit paid to wartime veterans or their surviving spouses who meet certain requirements. And so by needs-based, the reason that that's in bold is by needs-based, what the VA is saying, that has to do entirely with financial aspects. So it's not necessarily any kind of physical need. We'll address the disability aspect of it later on. But needs-based essentially means you can only have a certain amount of assets and a certain amount of income. And that gets complicated, but I just wanted to clarify what needs-based meant. But it's for wartime veterans or their surviving spouses. And I'll cover that again. So it is a non-service connected disability benefit, unlike compensation. And so essentially what you have within the veterans, within the disability the benefit system, the VA benefit system, you have two main types of cash benefits. One is pension, one is compensation. They are both disability benefits. People commonly refer to compensation as just simply disability, but they are both technically disability benefits. The difference is that pension is non-service connected, meaning that it is, while it is based on I hate to use the word disability, it is based on disability, but it has the veteran's disability or the surviving spouse's disability need not have anything to do with their time in service. Now with compensation, which is it makes up about 95% of all the VA benefits. This is why people don't know about pension, because when they think VA benefits, they think disability or compensation. Compensation is service connected, meaning that you have to show that there is the current disability that you have is somehow related back to your time in service. So it was either caused during your time in service or it was aggravated during your time in service. And so that's a whole different topic. And so we're not going to be talking about compensation. We're going to be talking about pension, non-service connected. And it's not, as I mentioned, it's not solely for veterans. There's a survivor's pension, which is essentially the same benefit available to typically surviving spouses. of deceased veterans. And I will talk about that as we go along. And so just to kind of recap my father's last webinar, if you want to see the whole thing, go to this website. It's our website, www.kimbroughslaw.net/webinars. And that is available right now. And then this webinar should be available very soon at that same page if you want to rewatch this. So how much can you get? So here are the rates. And since it's up on the screen, I'm not going to go through every single number. But as you can see, it can be fairly significant, depending on what your income is. But a veteran with one dependent, nearly $2,300 per month of additional cash benefits. That, as you see at the bottom there, they're tax-free and they're for life. That could certainly make a difference, I would think, in most people's lives. And so this is a very significant benefit that people don't know about. But as you can see, the numbers show it's not just a pittance.
Yeah, if you were to look at the top number and you look at if you had it for 20 years, it's over $500,000. It's real money, and it is tax-free.
So we just had a question. Somebody asked, says, I received 70% disability, from the VA each month. How does that affect my eligibility for this? So without going into too much detail, the way that the VA, I'm assuming that this person is talking about compensation, which I just covered. And as you'll notice, was referred to as disability, which is fine. It's totally understandable. So that is compensation. So 70%. Basically what the VA will do, they will look at your health condition and say, well, anywhere from 0% to 100%, this is your level of disability based on your service-connected disabilities. So that's what I'm assuming that this person is referring to. And so you can only receive one of the two. So you cannot receive VA compensation, service-connected, as well as VA pension, non-service connected. You can't receive both benefits at the same time, and the amounts vary. And so it all depends on the amount. Usually the VA will pick, if you don't do it yourself, they'll pick the higher number. So if you're getting paid $3,000 a month based on a service-connected disability, that's probably a better deal than what you would get going the pension route. So, but again, you can only have one or the other. So you technically have to choose. If you don't choose, the VA will choose for you. And so that's kind of how that works. So you just can't have both, basically. And so now we're going to talk about who's eligible. So there are three main areas of qualification. We're first going to talk about the wartime service period, because this is critical. And this is the first, I guess, this is kind of the front of the line, no pun intended, question that needs to be answered is, does the veteran's service period, or does his service meet the requirements of the wartime service period? And so basically what happens is Congress defines these wartime periods, which I'm going to show on the screen. I'm not going to go over each one just because there's too many words, but Congress decides these. So, we didn't just make these numbers up or these dates up. But as long as you had 90 days of active duty, one day of which was during a wartime period, during one of these, then that technically satisfies the wartime requirement. Now, what a lot of people think that when they see this, they think, well, I never actually fought in a war, or I never even left the United States. Well, it doesn't matter. You don't have to have left the United States. You don't have to have gone anywhere. You didn't have to have fought in any kind of war. As long as you had 90 days active duty, and then 1 day of that active duty fell within one of these time periods, it doesn't matter where you were, whether you were fighting, it doesn't matter. But one thing I would like to point out is the Vietnam anomaly. I don't know why they do this, but for whatever reason, if you served, this is the exception to the rule. If you served from February 28th, 1961 to August 5th, 1964, active duty, let's say you were active duty that entire time, but you were not in Vietnam. And by what the VA classifies as being in Vietnam is there are a lot of nuanced ins and outs to that. And they call it boots on the ground. So if you were not boots on the ground, and that also applies to Navy veterans, and that's where it gets complicated. But if you were not actually in Vietnam from February 28, 1961 to August 5th, 1964, the VA does not consider that qualifying service. And I know that probably sounds very confusing and ridiculous, but if you call our office, I can explain it further to you, but it would take all day to go into all of that now. So that's the first requirement. Second requirement has to do with age and health.
We don't like to see that we have any problems with us. At my age, my generation, we don't want to tell anybody that we have anything wrong with us. And we have a lot of people who have been in their 80s and they say, I'm fine, I don't need anything. But what they don't realize that they do have some problems, most likely, that can qualify them. For example, you have to have at least some help with at least 2 of your activities of daily living. One of those is bathing. I said, nobody needs to bathe me, but do you have any balance problems? And would your doctor say that you need to have grab bars in your shower, or possibly a chair in your shower, or a stool in your shower? That's help with bathing. And they think, how about walking? Well, do you happen to use a cane? Well, yeah. Well, that's help. You don't have to have somebody actually to hold you as you walk. So what you have to do, or what you should do, is let us just talk to you about what your real situation is. Because it could be that you may have more problems than you might think.
And so we also just got another question in here about this. This person says, I'm close to turning 80, but my health is pretty good, so I don't really need much assistance. Anything else I qualify for? And the answer is I'm not a lawyer, but what a lawyer would love to say to you is it depends. And it does depend on a lot of different factors. And this is part of the health hurdle that you see there that my father just spoke to is the health hurdle is really what we refer to as the health hurdle is when people are just unwilling to admit that they need a certain amount of assistance. And I am not saying that whoever you are, your question, I'm not saying that you do need assistance at all whatsoever. But that is the health hurdle that we encounter the most, is when people just do not want to give up their independence or act like they're not entirely independent. And just by admitting that you need assistance with 1 or 2 things, or that it might actually help to have somebody to help you with whatever it may be, does not mean losing your independence. And that's what I try to stress to our clients is that, hey, if you do need some help, why not take advantage of this benefit that the VA promised you before you ever went into the service in the first place? It's there. There are billions of dollars available in the budget in order to provide for this benefit. And so, it can be kind of dicey sometimes by telling people, hey, the more unhealthy you are, the greater likelihood there is that you will actually receive this benefit.
I had a client to come see me to talk about the VA, the pension. And he told me that he was fine. He does not need anything with him physically. And so we terminated the conference. And I said, I'm sorry, I guess I can't help you if you don't need anything. And then I watched him to go from the conference room to his car. He could barely even walk. But a lot of time the problem is a mental problem more than a physical thing, just because some people don't want to let on that there's anything wrong with them. So.
Yeah, and it can be what I tell people a lot of times, and this may sound corny, maybe it is, but people that may be too healthy, I always, not always, but a lot of times I will tell them that I've got some bad news and I've got some good news for you. And they always want to hear the bad news first for whatever reason. So I say, well, the bad news is you're not eligible for this benefit if you're that healthy. And then I tell them that the good news is that you're not eligible for this benefit because you're too healthy. And so, there is something to be said for getting older and not needing assistance. But there's also something to be said for getting older and recognizing that there may be some assistance that you need help for, or at least plan ahead in case you do need assistance in the future, because you never know what's going to happen. Ask my father. He was 48 years old and he had a stroke and it came out of nowhere. And so talk about a testament to planning ahead. That's the perfect example, because you never know what's going to happen.
Yeah, so, if you looked at the first webinar, I started out that with a picture of my family. And the boy that found me on the floor of my closet, it's Chad. He was 11, 25 years ago. Same guy.
Yeah, and so if y'all don't think that planning ahead for the unexpected matters a whole lot to either one of us, it does. That's about all I can say without starting to cry. All right, so here's the third area of qualification. It has to do with income and assets. Like I said earlier, it's a needs-based benefit. So the VA, this is primarily what the VA is going to be focused on. Of course, those first two areas are vital to get this benefit, but what the VA focuses on the most is income and assets. And they have passed regulations a couple of years ago that have really restricted what it takes to qualify. And just reading through that entire document makes me and everybody else realize how focused they are on the income and the assets. And we could devote an entire webinar as to their faulty reasoning behind that and how they go about it, but we're not doing that here. But just to let you know, money is important to the VA. Go figure. And so here, this is basically who's eligible. So October 18th, 2018 is when the VA put in these new regulations that set a bright line net worth limit. It used to be there was no actual limit. It was all based on, it was a multi-factor decision that they would make. They took that out of the hands of the VA employees and decided, okay, well, here's a number. If they're over this amount, they're not eligible. If they're under, well, then we'll see. But so essentially, if you have more assets than that number, that $130,000 figure, or more net worth than that figure, then the VA is going to deny any benefits for pension purposes. And so what net worth is it's your annual household income. And by household, that means any dependents that you might have living in your house. So let's say you're a veteran and you're married. Well, your spouse is obviously a dependent. Dependents for other purposes, the definitions of them are very complicated, but if you do have other dependents, there are extra allowances for that, but they will also add that as part of household income. But again, like my father said, rather than trying to figure all this out on your own, call somebody who knows, who can explain it to you and differentiate between what counts, what does not count. So that's the first aspect of net worth, household income plus assets. So there are some exclusions, and I'll get back to the 3-year look back period here in a second, but exclusions from assets primarily include if you own a primary residence, regardless of the value of it, that along with 2 acres on which it sits, both of those collectively are excluded. The other is personal effects, which basically just means if you have whatever you have in your home, if you have a vehicle, knickknacks, anything like that, those are excluded as well. But other than that, everything else is basically included in the asset category.
And here's a question we get. Says my home sits on more than 7 acres. So what do we do with that? You can have more than 2 acres as long as you can say that the excess acreage cannot be sold without selling the home. And we have a lot of people who are in that situation.
And what also the VA did when they implemented these new regulations is they put in place a 3-year look back period, similar to Medicaid in some respects, not so much in others. And so what a look back period is essentially when you apply for VA benefits, pension benefits, the VA is going to look back at the last 3 years of your financial life. And they're going to want to know if you made any transfers for less than fair market value to anybody outside of your household. So, for example, let's say you have a granddaughter who's going to college and needs help with tuition. If you give her $30,000, let's say, as a gift, not thinking about it, and you did it within the last 3 years prior to applying for VA benefits, VA, as long as you have more than $130,000, the VA is going to look at that as a transfer for less than fair market value, even though nobody would ever characterize it that, giving your granddaughter tuition money as such. It's how the VA looks at it. It is what it is. But so what they will do is they'll consider that a transfer, and it just causes a whole lot of issues because they don't fully understand, number one, what a transfer is, and number two, what fair market value is. And that's a whole nother topic again. But what they will do is they will look back 3 years, and any transfers you made over and above the $130,000 limit, they will basically use that as a way to deny benefits and possibly prevent you from getting them for a period of time in the future.
We do a great deal of estate plan. I'm an estate planner. I've been doing this almost 50 years. And so what we're looking to do is do the estate planning for our clients, not only just get the pension, just make sure that they're taken care of on all sides. And so we look at everything. We look at all the property and determine what can be done in this situation. We also do Medicaid planning. It's got a 5-year look back period as opposed to the 3-year look back period. So we have done a great deal of work with this. And so what I would say is just because you have uh, more than $130,000 in assets, just come see us and we'll see what we can do for you.
Yeah, and this whole thing is intensely personal, and so no two situations are alike. So this is very situation specific, and so we're giving you this information just in the form of generalities. And I know that everybody has their own individual questions that they would like to ask, or in individual circumstances that may impact this. But this is highly individualized, and so it's very difficult to, in fact, almost impossible for us to give you a blanket. Here's what you need to do. Here's how to do it, and this is what it's going to look like. And that is why we're not. This is not a sales pitch, but we're just telling you that there's so many pitfalls inherent into the VA system that you would never know about if you just went to the VA or if you try to do it by yourself. And so that's why we say call us, so that we can kind of analyze the situation and let you know for sure, because there are things you can do when it comes to applying for these benefits that might potentially jeopardize benefits down the road, whether that be VA benefits or Medicaid or whatever else. And so we take a very holistic approach to this. This is just what we do. We like to look at every single thing and make sure that nothing that we do is going to, if we put together a plan for someone, that it's not going to put in jeopardy anything that might happen down the road. And our main focus, honestly, and this may be a sidebar, but we want to focus on the veteran or the surviving spouse, whoever the applicant is, or if it's a couple, whoever our client is, we want to focus on maximizing their quality of life. And so that's why we look at everything.
And here's a good question here. My father receives income from Social Security and military retirement. Can I get the pension? And the answer is yes. In fact, I actually have a couple of clients who receive 4 checks from the federal government: Social Security, civil service retirement, military retirement, and the pension. They get 4 checks every month. So it doesn't really make any difference in terms of where that income comes from.
Right. And so then the last bullet point there, income can be offset by certain medical expenses. And so this is the good news, and why most people are able to qualify for this benefit. So the benefit, so we talk about VA pension. The benefit that most people think of when they think of this benefit, they call it aid in attendance, which is a bit of a misnomer because it is technically VA pension with aid in attendance. And what that means is that if you need a certain level of assistance, like we talked about earlier with the health issues, that enables you, if the VA recognizes that based on the medical evidence, which consists of a 2-page VA form, which is highly inadequate, but we can help you walk through that. If they determine that you are in need of aid and assistance on a regular basis, not a daily basis, not a constant basis, but on a regular basis. And again, with the health, it is not so, it's not as stiff as it seems to be in terms of the requirements. So there are other ways to actually qualify medically, but let's just say that the VA determines you are in need of aid and assistance on a regular basis. Then you are able to take your income, your gross income, and offset that with any recurring unreimbursed medical expenses you may have. So let's say that you are in assisted living, or even at home. You don't have to be in assisted living. And this is something that I would ask my dad to speak on here in a second. But let's just take an example. Let's say you're in assisted living and you're 80 years old or 70 years old, but you need a little help with your activities of daily living. Let's say your monthly income is roughly $2,500 a month, but you pay the facility for the community, you pay them $3,000 a month. What the VA will do is they will look at that $3,000 a month you pay to the facility, assuming that they provide you with a requisite amount of care, which we could talk about. So they'll take the $3,000 that you pay and they'll compare that to the $2,500 a month of your income. And they'll subtract, so there's a $500 difference there. And according to the VA, the way that they do, it's called income for VA purposes, IVAP. They will essentially say, okay, well, then you have no income. So it's a very useful way, if you do need assistance, to just get rid of the whole income question. And so and there are various ways that you can do that. But just know that just because if you call the VA and you ask them if you're eligible, they're going to ask you what your income is. And if you tell them what your income is, they're going to say, well, you have too much for the most part, but they don't take into account the medical expenses. They don't actually inform you about the medical expenses. And so that's where most people give up, because they think, well, that's the first thing they said is I have too much income. And so I don't qualify. So why even pursue this? And my father can expand.
Yeah. And the VA is not going to be looking to find that assisted living community that you're in, to find that number, the rent, the fees that you're paying. They don't do that. You have got to show them that. Yesterday, I was in my Gainesville office and a new client came to see me who had the VA to file an application for his mother. They had filed it February 2020, a year ago, and they show only the Social Security that she has was about $1,200 per month. But the only medical expense was the Part B that comes out of her Social Security. And that's not going to work. But the VA they will file it for you, and they won't tell you that you're not going to get it. But they do that all the time. So anyway, I had to tell them, you didn't have enough medical expenses, but you do have caregiver expenses, and that can be a medical expense. So anyway, we'll do that for them, and we'll get it for his mother. But don't count on the VA helping you at all.
And that's one of the saddest things about dealing with the VA is you would think that if you went to the VA for help with VA benefits, that they would guide you through the process seamlessly in order to get you what they promised. But unfortunately, that is far from the case. And so that's, I primarily focus on, I've studied VA benefits for almost a decade now. And so that's my main focus. And I love my job because I'm able to help veterans who may have gone to other people who claim to know how to help with these types of benefits. But it's been going on 2 years, maybe even more. And they've been denied over and over and over. And when we are able to tell them, okay, well, here's the problem, here's why, and this is what we can do to fix it, and then we get it for them, that makes coming into work every day And seeing a veteran walk in the door who's been trying to get benefits for 2 years, and 3 months after he came to you, he has them all the way back. And he walks in the door and he's crying and he gives you a giant hug. That's why I do what I do. That's a huge part of why we do what we do. And so it's just really frustrating that there aren't more avenues available to help with this. But again, it is what it is. And so we do what we can.
And I've got a couple of questions here. I want to answer these. The first one says, I have $180,000 in a joint account with my son. What can we do with that? As it turns out, according to the VA purposes, since it is joint with the child, only half of it has to be counted. So that's 90. And so that makes a big difference. Then the other question that I have is, if I qualify for the 2295 because I'm married, but what happened if I die before my wife? What can she get? Well, she can get the other, the lower amount, the survivor's pension, but she'll have to file. We do that all the time. Just have to file for her, but we can certainly do that.
And so can I jump in on that really quickly? A lot of people think that, you know, if you have a married couple with a veteran and they're receiving a certain amount, if the veteran dies, the assumption tends to be, from my experience, by most people, that they're going to continue to receive that exact same amount. The surviving spouse will. They'll continue to receive that same amount. And that's, unfortunately, that is not the case. And so, like my dad was saying, I mean, you have to file an entirely new application, but it is retroactive. So let's say that a veteran dies during February. A surviving spouse has an entire year to file a new claim on her own behalf or his own behalf for survivor's pension. And so what the VA will do is go back to the very first of the month following the month in which the veteran died. So if the veteran dies in February, even if it takes a year, I've never seen this, but the VA will look back all the way to March 1st and pay retroactive benefits to the surviving spouse based on the veteran's death. But you do have to file a new application, and it is not quite as much money. But it's just a common misnomer that people think that, oh, well, I'm going to just keep receiving the exact same amount. And I get a lot of phone calls with people very disappointed that that's not the case. And it's not. And it's unfortunate that they were not privy to that beforehand. So, yeah.
Okay, everybody wants to do their own of everything. You know, nowadays we could get online and find legal documents. You can do all your estate planning documents, and you can file for yourself. We have got a lot of clients that come to see us after a year, maybe 2 years, or maybe 3 years after they applied and couldn't get it. So you can certainly try that. And you can get your own trusts, wills, powers of attorney online if you want. It's your choice. We're here. If you have questions, you can email the questions to us and we'll answer them best we can. This could get pretty complicated. So if we just get a question without all the facts, we'll not be able to answer them without talking to you beforehand. But we'll do the best we can. So here we are, and thank you for being with us today.
And so I'd like to, so here's our phone number. We do have two offices, one here in Athens, Georgia, one in Gainesville, Georgia, but we have one main telephone line through which we filter everything else. So that's our phone number there, 706-850-6910. There's our website, the info@kimbroughLaw.net. If you have any questions, send them that way, and we will respond to you as best we can without having to actually talk to you and figure out the specifics of what's going on. And if you want to review this, the recordings of the previous webinar that my father hosted or this one, please visit our website. Again, kimbroughLaw.net/webinars. And we really appreciate y'all attending this and look forward to doing what we can to help you and your family in the future. So God bless.
You've just heard Attorney Kim Kimbrough explain how certain VA benefits can help older veterans, their spouses, and their dependents. To find out if you qualify, schedule a consultation with Kimbrough Law. You can do this in one of two ways. If you live near Athens or Gainesville, you can visit our office. If you prefer not to travel, we can meet with you by phone or Zoom video. An initial consultation normally costs $400. However, because you've watched this webinar, your consultation will be absolutely free. Consider it our gift to you. To schedule your consultation, click on the link below or give us a call.